In about a minute, we're going to start the formal program. So if y'all can start heading back to your seats, that'd be great. Okay. Yeah. Good evening, and welcome to the 2018 Hall of Honor ceremony. I hope you've enjoyed your meal this evening. Chef Miles James, a 2001 Hall of Honor inductee and Fayetteville High alumnus, provides us each year with his delectable culinary creations. Thank you, Miles. We have an exciting evening planned for you tonight. Much of what makes this foundation remarkable and unique is the commitment of our dedicated supporters. So it's only fitting to begin the formal ceremony this evening by recognizing a group that invests so much time and so many resources to our efforts, the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation Board of Directors. If you would stand and wave when I call your name, and please hold your applause until all the board members are recognized. Jamie Banks, Jane Gerhart, Craig Shy, Steve Rogers, Christina Knight, Connor McNair, Sarah Eichmann, Lisa Higgins, Kathy Wade, Tim Franklin, Katie Jackson, Ted Seago, Jeff Koenig, Mary Elizabeth Eldridge, Sherry Heinzelman, and our emeritus member, Jack Butt. I'd also like to welcome Fayetteville School Superintendent John L. Colbert. Dr. Colbert. Will you and Justin Eichmann, the president of Fayetteville Board of Education, please stand and be recognized. Justin. A big thank you also to Tim Hudson and Bob Moranto of the Fayetteville Board of Education, who are with us tonight as well. Also here tonight to show support is Fayetteville Mayor Lionel Jordan and State Representatives David Whitaker and Greg Letting. Thank you, Mayor and Representatives Whitaker and Letting, for joining us. Now I'd like to turn our attention to our presenting sponsor for the Hall of Honor, Garrison Asset Management. Garrison has been a sound partner of the foundation for over 15 years and is dedicated to supporting public education in Fayetteville. At this time, I'd like to bring up James Bell with Garrison to say a few words.
Thank you very much. I was on my way here tonight. I had to go pick up the boys and get them home and situated before I got here. My wife's out of town, and my son told me How late are you going to be, Dad? Don't you know tonight's a school night? I said, if there's any room in Arkansas with more people who know that tonight's a school night, you'll be lucky to find it. So I'll be quick. Garrison Asset Management has been proud to be a partner with the foundation for 15 years now, and a partnership that has only grown stronger. Over the years, we've worked with many great people at the foundation and the school system, witnessed so many generous gifts, large and small, to build up this wonderful foundation. Not just money, but time, hard work, expertise, oftentimes behind the scenes, that can make an event like this or an organization like this seem effortless. If anyone's ever put together something like this, you know it's not effortless. We've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants given to hardworking, innovative educators and scholarships to deserving students. And of course, heard the stories of so many wonderful honorees. We believe the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation makes this community stronger, makes this community better, and their good work is truly a blessing to this community. My colleagues and I at Garrison Asset Management are humble and proud to have played a role in helping this event come together tonight. We offer sincere congratulations to tonight's honorees, and we thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight to celebrate them and to further the mission of the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation. Thank you.
Please accept on behalf of the entire board of the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation our heartfelt thank you for your commitment to making this ceremony so successful, James and Garrison Asset Management. Our presenting media sponsor is Cityscapes. They do a lovely piece on the Hall of Honor inductees every year. I hope you're able to get a copy this evening if you've already not picked up one. Our patron sponsor this year is Truity Education Foundation, and our education sponsors are the Julian C. Stewart family, the Bank of Fayetteville, Bruner and Lay, and Nabholz Construction. Let's please give them a big hand. The remainder of our sponsors are listed in your program, and please take a moment this evening to note these generous supporters. These dedicated partners continue to support public education through the work of the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation. Now, please help me in welcoming Cambry Horn Brooks, Executive Director of the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation, to come up and shepherd tonight's program.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? I'm glad you're all here. We're going to get started. Got to put my glasses on. So each year, as the applications roll in, I am in awe as I review the nominations. Reading the stories, the admiration and respect for the nominees is evident. Take a moment to think about this process. These inductees have so inspired so many that friends, colleagues, or family members get together and say, it is time. It's time to sit down and make sure this person is recognized. So from the very beginning, even before the ceremony, their nomination is already seated in respect, integrity, or kindness and compassion, unbeknownst to the nominee that someone has taken the time to write down their best qualities, their best actions, the amazing ways these individuals have contributed to public education and the betterment of Fayetteville. While I'm adding the new applications to our files, I comb through the myriad of individuals, each with their own qualities and attributions. All equal, all worthy of the highest respect, and I think Fayetteville is absolutely wonderful. I also get to call and inform the new nominees that they have been selected, and I'll be honest, most of the time they are caught off guard. They are moved, but they are caught off guard. It is usually not until this evening that the inductees begin to grasp how much of an impact they have had on the lives of others, from students to colleagues to our community. That is because they all possess the same qualities. They are humble, authentic, and selfless. They do not seek recognition for the things they are doing, but instead it is part of their core. They are doers, passionate, altruistic, and at the end of the day, they do it because it's who they are. So let's give them a hand. And as we do every year, I would like to take a moment to recognize the honorees who have been previously inducted, as well as the family and spouses of inductees who have passed on, all of whom have joined us this evening to celebrate our new inductees into this prestigious group. So I'm going to call out your name, and again, hold your applause, because there's quite a few of you guys that have joined us this evening. So the first person I'd like to have wave her hand is Oma Blackwell. Over here, there you go, Oma. The McNair family in honor of Ferba McNair. Denise and Hershey Garner. Martha McNair. Larry Biddle. Lisa Higgins. Jane and Dave Gerhardt. Carl Collier. I can see y'all out there. Nancy Allen. Margaret Willock. Francis Gibson Ross. Frank Sharp. The Holcomb family in honor of Henrietta Holcomb, Mary Lou Miller, Susie Stewart, Jeff Koenig, the Lashley family in honor of David Lashley, Jack Butt, Greg Lee, Don DeWeese, Laura Underwood, Treva Hamilton, the McClinton family in honor of Clark McClinton, and Justin Minkle. Let's give them all a hand, please. Of the inductees in your program, I urge you to take a glance at it and see the amazing people that we have here in our community. Now I want to switch gears and celebrate another group of individuals. Each year, the Fayetteville High School Student Council participates in a long-standing tradition of co-sponsoring the Hall of Honor. Student Council also is able to nominate a Student Choice Award, which we are going to announce this evening. The award gives the students the opportunity to celebrate the achievement of teachers and alumni and friends of the Fayetteville Public Schools through the induction of the Hall of Honor. We are thrilled to have our students help us each year, so let's give a moment to give thanks to the young men and women who have served you this evening and have been around the room to help out with the celebration. I wouldn't be who I am if I did not also direct you to the envelopes that are on your table. A gift to the foundation is a meaningful way to recognize those individuals who have made a difference in your life. Funds can acknowledge teachers, students, alumni, parents, administrators, or anyone who's had a significant impact with you. At any point in the evening, you may make a gift in honor or memory, and later this evening, students will be moving through the room to pick up the envelopes. I'm almost done. As you know, pulling off an event like this takes a team. And so I'd like to thank Emma Pierce, our foundation coordinator extraordinaire. She's way back in the back. Emma, thank you for all the work you do. Trey Marley with the Fayetteville Public Schools has done a wonderful job with our videos you'll see this evening. And then we had some other volunteers, Amy Jones, Kathy Wade, Ashley Perkins, Ashley Blair, Laura Odom, and Sarah Eichmann. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you ladies again for helping out. Now it is my honor to bring up our Master of Ceremonies this evening, News Director for KUAF and Producer for Ozarks at Large, Kyle Kellums. Come on up, let's get it going.
I call Fayetteville my hometown. In fairness, it's not. I graduated from Mountain Home High School in 1981. I came here for college and I've stayed. I just want to say to everyone who has been inducted before, to those of you who will be inducted tonight, to those of you who are graduates of Fayetteville High School, to those of you who are mayors of Fayetteville, to all of you who've put this on, thanks for letting me adopt Fayetteville. And because I didn't go to Fayetteville High School, but thank you, public education, for producing so many people that did go to Fayetteville High, stuck around, and made this such a wonderful place. Thank you on behalf of all of us transplants. And really, right, since 1981, can I call Fayetteville my hometown now? All right. No one put that on Facebook, just in case, someone from Mountain Home sees that, because that would be rude. Something about Thursday nights in Fayetteville, right? This is one of my favorite nights of the year. I don't know how many of you go to Pratt Place Barn for the Roots Festival on Thursday night when it's everyone, it seems, that you love in Fayetteville is there and having a good time. I just love tonight, and I know I'm going to feel that way in about 40 minutes or so when we're done with tonight. We have 4 wonderful people to talk about. We're going to hear about the impacts they did make. And the people who we induct here, you wait long enough, and someone they influenced will then be up here in a few years because of the work that the inductees have done in their young lives. All right, we have Mary Faye Jones, Fayetteville Public Schools educator tonight. I'm not going to tell you to hold your applause either. Applaud for everybody. And you'll applaud for them later, too. Peggy Taylor Lewis, Fayetteville High School class of 1956. Dr. James Hunt, DDS, Fayetteville High School class of 1952. And the late George Spencer, a Fayetteville Public Schools educator and our Student Choice recipient this year. Our first honoree tonight is Mary Faye Jones, Fayetteville Public Schools educator.
Well, the first time I met Faye was when Henrietta Holcomb came and said, Alice, I have someone that's interested in an aide job in kindergarten. And so we met and we clicked right away. And she was an asset from the very beginning. Well, she believed in every child, and she still does. And she wanted all children to have the same experiences and opportunities. And she accepted any child at their starting point or with what they brought with them. And working with student teachers, she was a very good director and giving them opportunities and guiding them and making them understand what the profession really was and what they were going to have to do to be a member and be successful.
The first time Larry and I met Faye Jones was late summer of 1984. Our first child was getting ready to go to kindergarten, and we all had some butterflies, and we went in the kindergarten room, and Faye Jones glanced at Larry and me, but immediately knelt to look at Bo eye to eye. She spoke to him almost like an adult to another adult. What she was doing was establishing trust. But she knew if she had their trust, that she could set expectations. And she knew that if they met those expectations, their confidence would immediately improve. And learning would be the byproduct. I cannot think of a better friend to have first had in Fayetteville Public Schools than Faye Jones.
Faye was a forerunner in some things. We all know that she and Henrietta Holcomb just worked and worked to do the full-day kindergarten. What I think a lot of people don't know is she was on the forefront of work for kids who were on the autism spectrum. Faye pushed and she shoved and she looked and she read and she went everywhere she could think of. She looked at anything she could do. And I've always said the irony's not lost on me that the Fayetteville mascot is a bulldog, because Faye is a bulldog when she's passionate about something. But Faye saw the need for a special classroom for kids on the spectrum.
If they were bringing a child in that had a certain need, she read up on that need and developed a plan and understood the plan. She not only sat in on those conferences, She knew quite a bit, or she saw it being able to go in reality. It wasn't just a textbook type of prescription. She threw in the real world to make it happen.
One of the things about Faye, she's got some good country wisdom. I learned to pick your battles. Don't die on every hill. She'd say, girl, you don't have a dog in that hunt. Let it go. But the things that she did believe in, or the things that I believed in, I learned to be dogged about them, to stand up for kids. And I learned always to always say, what's best for the kid? This is not an adult issue. This is not a parent issue. It's not about us. It's about the kid. One thing that you might be surprised to know about Faye is she drives just like she does everything else. If you know her very well, when she's into something, she's passionate about it. She takes her hands and she holds them right here and she hunches her shoulders forward. When she was on her way down to your room, we all laughed about it. She walked like this. She was a woman on a mission. She drives the same way. She puts her hands on the steering wheel and she points that car and she leans in.
You know, when somebody puts almost 40 years of their life into something and they retire, you sort of think, oh, maybe they'll travel or read some books or go fishing, put their feet up. I think almost immediately Faye Jones plunged herself into EOA Children's House. I wasn't really surprised that she did that because it just seemed so up her alley as child advocate, child encourager. And she was able to contribute to this beautiful new facility they have now.
Our 2018 Hall of Honor inductee, Faye Jones.
Tonight, Faye Jones is being inducted by 2008 Hall of Honor inductee Oma Blackwell.
It is my honor to induct you into the 2018 Hall of Honor.
Couldn't ask for anybody better than you to do it.
Not done. You're getting this for your vitality, your honor, and your service. Congratulations.
Thank you, Alma. Thank you. I wouldn't be here without you. You know that.
Here's your plaque.
Are you down?
I'm down. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Alma, here. Camera, you're right. It's really doesn't hit home until tonight. And I told the kids at Fayetteville High School today, I said, there's no way you go without the paper. If it's not on the paper, it's not on your mind. So you just take it with you everywhere you go. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, foundation members. Thank you, school board. Thank you, everybody who's worked and put this on. You know, there's Camille and Tanner and all those people who have put forth to work tonight. Those are my last kids. They're graduating this year. After Dr. Hunt told me today, he said after they graduate, he said, you're a has-been. So
I'm a has-been. So, where do you start? I mean, there's just such a big deal made out of something that I love to do. Remember Susie Stewart trying to say, well, it's like, why are you doing all of this? All I did was do what I wanted to do. And it's wonderful to be recognized for that. And the joy was mine. I think we give real pleasure to the Chick-fil-A people that always say, my pleasure. It was my pleasure. I promise you, it was my pleasure. My thank you start with my husband of over 58 years. And my 4 children, their spouses, my 5 grandchildren, and some of their spouses. And then there are 3 great-grandchildren now, and one of them is in Holcomb Elementary School. Holcomb paid me to do that, by the way. Nobody that comes up here and to accept this kind of honor can't begin to name the people who have done that. Alice Reed, that I interviewed, Henrietta Holcomb, said, you come and you meet this new teacher that we're hiring down here at Bates, and said she's interested in working with you. Alice became a lifelong friend, and I don't know how to say thank you. Henrietta Holcomb, I always called her my professional mother. She told a group one time, she said, for goodness sakes, don't blame me for her. She was such a delight, such a delight. There's just people that come and go, Rhonda, I'm going to hurt you. I can't help it if the state police and I have a good working relationship. They usually ask me to sign the warning that I get, and they tell me that I need to sign the piece of paper proof that we talked about this and that I understand. But Alice, Henrietta Holcomb, and then I had the pleasure of being assigned to Root School and Oma Blackwell. We actually met in a little town in southern Arkansas, Magnolia, and became friends down there, and it was a joy, an honor to work with Oma all those years. My families throughout the years, the Coreys, the Judds, the Tanners, the Blakes, the Matthews, every name in the book you can go through, and I can put a face with them. And that was my joy. It wasn't what I did, it was my receipt of that joy. 24 years ago, we decided that we needed to do something. I was at the administration building, and we decided that we wanted to put together a plan for the Fayetteville schools that would reach out into the future. We took 40 people. We took a farmer. We took people from a factory. We took people that represented the university. We didn't get school board and all of the Chamber of Commerce people and put those people together. We went and got the real people of Fayetteville Public Schools. And Judy Stafford, who's here tonight, worked at that time was the director at Mount Sequoia Center. And she said, come up here. She said, I'll find somebody to fix the food. We'll do that. And we took those 40 people and we put together this first strategic plan for the Fayetteville Public Schools, and we had 8 goals. And one of them was to see what we could do about raising funds for teachers and classrooms that was above and beyond what you got from the state, which never was enough. Out of that was born the Fayetteville Public Education. Jack Butt chaired that. Oma Blackwell was on that committee. I beg your pardon. Pat Waldron was on that committee. Oma chaired another committee for us. And out of that, this organization, this event tonight was born. It's It's one of the best things in the whole wide world. In closing, I want to say thank you to another group of people. We've been through some pretty rough times here in the Fayetteville Public Schools the last few years. It's not always been in our favor. We have survived it. We are on the road to recovery. And people started leaving us and not saying that this was the place to be. You know what? We're on the road to recovery. And I want to say thank you to people like you. You came and you supported this organization because you remembered the 545 people who are custodians and bus drivers and all of the things that make our schools. The 751 people who teach every day. And last of all, you came to support this organization so that 9,889 students are getting the best education in the whole world. Thank you. I'm not sure I can even walk.
I can. Okay. Public service announcement to anybody else coming up on the stage. It doesn't go flush to the wall. We're going to call that Kyle's Landing from now on. Aren't you glad now that I admitted I was not a Fayetteville public education graduate when I started this? All right. Our next honoree tonight is Peggy Taylor Lewis, FHS class of 1956.
So Peggy was raised in Cane Hill. She grew up sleeping on burlap sacks filled with hay. The family moved to Fayetteville in 1946 so her dad could earn a better income for this family of 6 children. The school she went to was this all grades, 1 through 9, all put together, one teacher for all those students. So when she finished 9th grade, then she was bused to Fort Smith because Fayetteville didn't have a high school for black children.
Even though schools were supposed to be separate but equal, they were not. And Peggy would tell you that she didn't have some of the background that those of us who had gone to the white schools had. Many people don't know that 4 days after Brown, the Fayetteville School District voted to integrate in the fall. So a lot went on that summer with Mrs. Bell and the students from Lincoln School that nobody talked about.
The elders in her church here prepared those students, and they took them aside and they said, you're going to walk tall and proud. And so that's how they approached, that first day. And of course, the students at the school had been so well prepared by their principal that this is not a big deal. This is just another group of students coming in. It was just a beautiful experience for her. And she made many good friends who are still her great friends to this day.
I believe she was in 209. 209 considered themselves to be the best homeroom. Now, I was in 4, and I would disagree with that. And so each classroom was supposed to do something, some kind of skit or something. Well, I'll have to say on that day, 209 won. I won't give them credit for every time, but 209 won because Peggy sang, and she got a standing ovation. She has and had a beautiful voice and enthusiasm, and she was just lovable. When all of this happened in Little Rock, she was going to Philander Smith. She lived around the corner from Daisy Bates, and on more than one occasion she had to be removed because it wasn't safe for the people living in that area. But we feel that she and the other students made us aware that change isn't bad, that you can learn and be friends with people who are different than you. And when it gets down to it, we're not that different after all.
I think, you know, she growed up in that bad time, you know, and so during that change and everything, and, you know, she's one of them that probably could just step out to make that point, you know, that we are all, you know, brothers and sisters. She's always picked me up. You can bet if it's for the good or something, she's gonna stand up there and she's gonna put her back in it for you. And she's not gonna back up. And I'm sure there was other things that she dedicated her times to there in town. It had to be within walking distance because Peggy ain't got a driver's license and never has had one. She's got such a beautiful personality and her light shines so bright that even on a dark day, she lightens it up.
You know, while the rest of us kind of dart here and there in our frenetic, overloaded lives, walking for her is like a moving meditation. It just gives her time to process life and the things going on in life. Georgia O'Keeffe once said that nobody sees a flower really. It is so small and we haven't time. And to see takes time. And Peggy sees the flowers.
Our 2018 Hall of Honor inductee, Miss Peggy Lewis.
Peggy Lewis is being inducted tonight by 2009 Hall of Honor inductee Frank Sharp.
Peggy, it's my privilege to induct you into the 2018 Hall of Honor. This is for your fidelity, honor, and service. Let me add courage.
Come on, you gotta get a picture of us. I'm a doer, but I do my job. But anyway, thank you so much. I just can't really imagine how this come about. I know I lived in the era, but I didn't know I was gonna someday get something like this. Because I was born in Cane Hill, worked on Mr. Jim Pite's farms where we lived, across from the canning plant. We had a one-room schoolhouse where we set 3 students to a long desk. And my first teacher was Miss Savannah Reese from St. Matthew in Allen. And when she came to Cane Hill, she lived in our home. And finally, they made a bigger place where she could have more room. And she moved over to the school and stayed. But anyway, I won't go into all that detail because I'd be here 2 or 3 years. But anyway, I want to say to you all, I am blessed
Fayetteville, and I got old enough to know that when you got a husband, it was men, boys. And I told my mother, I said, there's one thing I'm going to pray. I am not going to marry nobody digging in dirt on the farm, because that's where we came up. And when I came to Fayetteville, I lived on Weller Street where the old restaurant was. And it is still standing today. And I'm still wanting to just walk through that door and look it over. But through it all, I'm not going to carry a whole lot. But I would talk to the 12th graders today. And I told them, I sat where you sat today. But you got a better chance than I had at the time. But I had made up my mind that I was going to get an education, because Mom and Dad didn't get very much. And when I graduated from the 9th grade and came to Fort Smith for 1 year, this is where I met Herbert Lewis. He was a saxophone player, and he played with Buddy Hayes, and Mr. Hunt knew exactly who I was talking to, and I think it is Billy's Hideaway that's out here on the highway. And Herbert would come up here and play, and 2 more men would come with him. But through it all, I went back to Fayetteville, and I tell you what, it was a delight. We walked, Preston them lived away from me, and Virginia Lee and Mary Blackman, they lived another direction. And we just all walked up and got to school at the same time. Preston couldn't walk because he kind of had a problem. And I think they bought him, but after a while the young men came and they walked him in and walked with him. So after that, I graduated. And 56, and I went to Philander. And I really learned to grow up and be independent, as I told your children today. Whatever you want to do, you do it. If you have to slow down, but don't quit. Because education is going to take you places that you can't imagine what you can do. So that's the way it done me, because I never thought I would work with children as much as I have in other folks. And at the hospital, I meet and greet all the time. So I'm not going to worry you anymore. It's been nice, and I thank you for everything you have done. Peace.
Our next honoree tonight is Dr. James Hunt, class of 1952.
A story Dad shared with us recently was that he was visiting with my first grade teacher, who was Maxine Chisholm. Miss Chisholm shared with him that 75 to 80% of the kids in her classroom alone at Root School were not able to participate in learning because they had so much dental pain. Dad was able to come in and start with her class, and then eventually it spread to the school, and then to other schools, and then to the entire district, that he, as well as other dentists in the city, were screening all the children in the district for dental disease. They were then able to refer the kids for dental care. If they were not able to afford dental care, he then had the idea and worked with other people in the community, including the Altrusa Club and other dentists, to establish the free health clinic. One of the problems that the free health clinic had was that they didn't have staff, and it also was an issue for dentists in the area. And so he was instrumental in starting the dental assistant program in the area at West Campus, and not only started it, but taught in it for many years, and then also hired those people, those students, after they got out of school. At that time, there was no funding for dental care for this underserved population. So this clinic was really the only option, especially for the Fayetteville area, for kids to be able to get dental care. And many times these families were having to choose between a meal for the family, a tank of gas to get parents to work, or dental care. And the majority of the time, the dental care was the thing that fell to the wayside. And being able to provide this free clinic, that was then taken off the table, and the care was then provided, and the overall health of the child was then taken care of, which then that meant they could then participate more fully in school.
Dr. Hunt actually brought hospital dentistry to Arkansas because we weren't doing dental procedures in the hospital when he came in 1959. But he was a true innovator back then.
When Jim came in, the concept of a pediatric dentist just didn't exist. And so he had to struggle to establish the concept that a child is not just a little adult. A child has special needs and special things that make them grow and become healthier. I think one of the things that Jim may not really fully understand, that I understand as a pediatrician, because when I came up here 35 years ago, children who were underserved and were on state insurances like Medicaid and our kids really didn't have access to dental care. Now, in 2018, I can see a child who has state Medicaid insurance. I can give them a list of multiple dentists that they can go see, and that dentist can be reimbursed for their costs. That allows kids who, before the community clinic and Jim Hunt, couldn't get care, now get great care after Jim Hunt and his work at the community clinic.
Behavioral management is a large part of pediatric dentistry, and now we have sedation, we have anesthesia, we have topicals, so you never feel anything. Well, when Jim came up as in pediatric dentistry, you had really none of those things. So everything was the way that you communicated with your patients and the way that you handled them behaviorally. He could still capture a kid's imagination and confidence without all those things. And there's not many people that can do that. When he was talking to a child or a parent, education, education, education. Not only academic, but lifestyle and how to live a better life and be a better person.
Jim graduated with probably the better part of the team, and his wife Margaret was the drum major at Fayetteville High, and she went on and became a nurse. She supported them through the first part of their practice. To know Margaret for all these years is to understand that she's a big part of this team for all the things that Jim accomplished. He wouldn't have been able to do without my mother-in-law.
I've always been very proud of my dad and always known that he had an impact on the community. But I didn't, and I had my childhood memories of what those pieces were, but I didn't really get to pull all that together until as an adult I was able to read those articles and see all those individual pieces and how all that fit together, and recognize not just how he impacted the Fayetteville School District, but how he impacted all of Northwest Arkansas and all of the state of Arkansas. And then when you talk about his mission work, how he impacted the world, and just quietly did so. Dad, we're so proud of you.
Our 2018 Hall of Honor inductee, Dr. James Hunt.
Dr. James Hunt is being inducted tonight by 2007 Hall of Honor inductee Jeff Koenig.
80-year-old men are not supposed to do the splits. It's fun learning to walk all over again when you're that old, you know. Well, I want to thank Faye and Peggy both for what they've said, and I think Faye said it all as far as thanks is concerned. It'd be best probably if I would just sit down, but and again, Cambry said 3 minutes, and my family said, Dad, you can't even say hello in 3 minutes. Mark Twain says, when in doubt, ask the man's wife. And if you were to ask Margaret, she will tell you, yes, we've had a blessed life. And I attribute this to two main factors. One is faith, and the other is education. As far as faith is concerned, I'll just simply say that the Lord rescued me. But as far as education goes, it's been a truly blessed life, truly a blessed life. And the education, if you look at it, it really began with people that some of you will recognize the names. Virgil Blossom, superintendent, who taught us integrity. Ms. Louise Bell, who taught my English my senior year, rescued me from Francis Irby Gauntly, who's taught my English in the 6th grade, and he liked the way that I wrote and liked my humor, and he never did really grade my English. He just gave me A's. And I went into Ms. Bell. I couldn't get FIG my senior year, which is one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I went into Ms. Bell's class, and the first test that I took under, I got an F. The only F I've ever made in my life. But boy, it made an impact on me, I tell you. And as a result, when I went away to college, I completely tested out of English all the way down the line. So they put me into advanced English literature, and I can give old Fig credit for some of that, because the rascal, he did teach me how to write, and I enjoyed it. And we went up there, and I had a southern accent, and the people in Kansas City, I had friends that they used to invite Margaret and I to parties because they liked to hear us talk. And for some reason or other, my instructor felt the same way about my writing, and so I breezed through that. I'm so thankful that I had a liberal arts education. My pre-med required a liberal arts education. Back to high school, Ms. Bernice Carnes, I don't know if some of y'all remember her, math teacher, probably one of the best math teachers I think that's ever happened in Northwest Arkansas. And she made a math freak out of me. There were only 5 of us in the class, and I used to go down during study halls, and I would try to make up problems that Ms. Carnes couldn't make, and she would try to make up some that I couldn't, or make up some that I couldn't work. And so as a result, again, when I went to college, well, I had to take this trig class as part of my requirements for pre-med, and I tested out of everything else, so I didn't have to take college algebra and all that good kind of stuff. And the trig just took about 2 weeks, and the trig teacher informed me that I could sleep on the back row and do my homework or whatever I wanted to do, just stay out of his way. Because bless his heart, he hadn't learned yet that 2 + 2 isn't necessarily 4. He was completely bewildered by the definition of 0, so we went on from there. The main event that happened in high school, however, in my life, happened in the basketball locker room. Early days. In the school year of 1949-1950, we were having a conversation after basketball practice, and a kid by the name of Kenny Boyer, he says, we got to have girlfriends and we got to have nicknames. You know, this is big stuff. And so he says, Hunt, what rhymes with Hunt? And somebody hollers out grunt. So I became Grunt Hunt, stuck with me for my high school years. But the important thing was, he said, Hunt, you don't have a girlfriend. Everyone else had a girlfriend. I didn't have a girlfriend. And I've wondered about that from time to time. But nevertheless, I didn't have a girlfriend. And Kenny says to me, you need to get a date with Margaret Hudgens. He said, she's really a nice girl, and besides that, she kisses real good. You know, we celebrated our 63rd anniversary the other day. And I haven't asked her yet how he knew. You know, I really haven't. It's just like you'll laugh about this, I think, too. You know, I've never asked her to marry me, and she's never said yes. It's the truth, isn't it, Margaret? It really is the truth. It just sort of, we just grew up together, and we were just supposed to get married. That's just the way that it went. I do want to reflect just very briefly, just in closing this. There's so many things I would like to say. I wish that there were time to tell you about our experiences on the mission field. I wish that I could tell you about the cannibals. I wish I could tell you about the slave raids. I'm sorry, I'm emotional. But there are faces and names of those terrible things that happened there. But there was hope. But there really isn't time to discuss those things. But back to the school program. It actually began in 1950. There's been some question about the time on that, but it actually began in 1959. And Ms. Chisholm had been in Bible study with me. We had attended the same church, and she swore up and down when I got my dental degree. She said, within 2 weeks from the time you practice, you're going to be in my classroom, friend. And she held me to that. And that's actually when those exams started. And back then, I enlisted several of the dentists. There weren't very many of us. You could count us on one hand back then. And I enlisted Ernest Stanberry and Bob Clack and a few of the guys. And we did the school exams. And 95% of the kids in the Fayetteville public school system needed emergency care. They just needed care. They needed emergency care. And as a result of the Altruza Club, and I want to give you some specific names, Ms. January, Ms. Buell Woods, and Ms. Gabriel. I don't know if any of you remember these folks or not, but they ramrodded the program through with the Altruza Club, and they supported this program for a long time when nobody else was really doing it. And they would go and pick the kids up. These three ladies would go and pick the children up and bring them to the dental offices, and the various guys would just donate their time, and that's the way we took care of the kids. And we were able to reverse that figure so that in 5 years, we had it to where only 5% of the kids needed emergency care. As far as the clinic goes, I really must say something about the two Donnas. Donna Danner, Neil Danner's wife that used to work up with Al Eason, was an insurance agent with him. And Neil's wife, Donna, became my assistant, and she started working with the dental clinic, and then she enlisted a Donna Darling, who was Webb Darling's wife, who was an executive with, Margaret, EPC. At any rate, the clinic really would not, the program just would not have even gone on had it not been for those ladies. There are just so many names that I could give you. All of the volunteers that have been involved. I would surely, at my age, I can't remember my own name. I apologize to some of you here tonight. Some of you that I've known all my life, and I can remember your first name, and about 30 minutes later, I'll remember your last name. But there's just so many, and I would leave somebody out if I started thanking people. But I heard a man say one time when he got up to speak, he says, I feel the presence of 1,000 ghosts. And they're not ghosts. They're very real. Thank you. Appreciate it. You got it? Got it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
By the way, the plaques tonight were made by students at Woodland Junior High, and it was done, yeah, Woodland. And they were able to do that with a grant from the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation. Our final inductee this evening will be receiving a special nomination, the Hall of Honor Student Choice Award. This award goes to Fayetteville High School educator George Spencer.
So I don't really remember the first time I actually met George. It was a little informal, I'm sure, because he was already a pillar by the time I was in high school. George had this very interesting dynamic because on the surface he looked very chill, very casual, so very approachable and relaxed. But he was firm, and so everybody kind of stayed in line, and you always had your homework done, and even some of the slackers, who I won't mention names, they had their homework done, even if you were getting it done at lunch. People remember a minimal amount of what you actually teach them in the class, but they do remember just that experience and the feeling they had. It was just years later, and hey, you remember chemistry? I remember George. The only word that I ever think of is just care, which seems like such a very, very simplistic word, but it's the best word I ever have to describe George, because he seemed to care about his students, he seemed to care what he was doing, and even as a high schooler, you could also see he cared about his other co-workers, you know, the other teachers.
George was a doer, you know, preeminently, and he, when it came to working in the classroom, he, I think, didn't put much emphasis on knowledge for its own sake. It always had to lead to something that you could do in the material world, usually with it. And well, that's one of the things I think students liked about him. He bridged that gap between sort of theoretical knowledge and practical application. He would and did many times stand strongly on issues involving classroom policy and school policy, and yet he could do it without alienating anybody. I doubt that there was anybody in the school, from administrators on down, who would have called George an adversary. I mean, how could you? George had this unregimented personality, you know. He was very spontaneous, yet he insisted on hard work. Both of those things together. And he talked like an Eastern Arkansas person. And that was part of his attraction. I loved to hear George talk.
So I don't remember life without George. He was always part of my life. We grew up more or less like not so much brothers but cousins, because we played together a lot, and our grandparents would often do things together. They loved nothing more than being outside in that land, and as often as possible they would take us with them. And so we got it from them. You do not ever litter. You see something, you bring it back, you make sure you take it in, you take it out, that kind of thing. And so that was deeply ingrained in us, and George just got increasingly committed to that way of thinking about the world the more he saw the natural beauty of Arkansas and how in many ways vulnerable it was to modernization and so forth, but also the development that was threatening, you know, the Buffalo River. And once he got to meet Harold Hedges and those people who really saved the Buffalo River, he became a zealot, I would say, it's fair to say, about protecting as much of the land as possible, because George saw it in a deep way how valuable it was for people who didn't know so much about the outdoors to see that stuff in a purer state. I think it's fair to say that George, a long time ago, decided he wasn't going to follow a traditional model. I think he realized his true passion was A, in teaching, and B, in science, and he decided to go back after being a lawyer for a couple years and take the courses required to be able to teach high school chemistry, and the rest, as they say, is history. He loved teaching, and he knew he had a gift at it, and I think he felt like that was his best way of creating, in a fundamental sense, his legacy. He said, don't sweat the small stuff. Just focus on what really matters. And what really matters, of course, is connecting with people. And George definitely believed in working hard, but he believed in playing pretty hard too, and I think that's partly why he was so widely loved. What George would be most proud of, I think, was that the students recognized he was teaching them far more than chemistry. He was teaching them an attitude about life. He was teaching them an attitude about learning, and it's invaluable.
Our 2018 Hall of Honor inductee, George Spencer.
As a tribute to George's legacy, the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation is inducting George Spencer posthumously. His family, Matt, Rita, and Mary Lou, will receive the induction by 2017 Hall of Honor inductee Martha McNair.
It is my privilege to present you this medallion and then this plaque for George's fidelity, honor, and service.
Cambry told us that we didn't need to speak since this is George is being honored posthumously. But if you knew George, then you know that he wouldn't pass up a chance to speak. You would also know that he would have already checked his watch to see how long this talk would last. So we'll be brief. George loved teaching at Fayetteville High School. He loved his students, and he cherished his work family, many of whom are here tonight. We were at a party once, and a woman was ranting about how everyone hated their teaching jobs. George and I kind of looked at each other and were a little sheepish and turned to her and we went, "We don't." I never thought he would retire, but I'm really glad he did. We were able, in the last year or so, to do some of his bucket list trips, so that was good. George considered himself a lucky man to teach the caliber of students that he had at Fayetteville High School. He would have been so humbled and proud to be honored in this way.
My brother George was so many things to me. He was, first of all, my big brother. I could always count on him for anything I needed. Together, we were big brother and big sister to our little brother, Matt. And at one point, George said, "We can't call him our little brother anymore. He's taller than we are." So he's our younger brother. George and I were also fellow teachers. And when I think about him as a teacher, I realize that many of the things that I know about teaching, I learned from him. Before he ever took an education course, before he ever stepped foot in a classroom, he was teaching me how to be a teacher. Because being a teacher wasn't just what George did. Being a teacher was who he was. So on behalf of George and my family, Rita, Matt, and I are very proud to accept this honor for him. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Donnell Fincher and the FHS Encore group to make their way up to the stage and finish the program for us, what's become a wonderful tradition at these evenings. While they're setting up, let me remind you, I have a couple of props here. You can still make a gift in honor of one or all of the inductees, perhaps a favorite teacher, a student, or anyone who's made a significant contribution to our public schools. Just place your gift in the envelopes on the table. We have student council members coming around the room to collect them. They've they've got these yellow bags, and they'll just put, it's easier than that, the envelope in the yellow bag. So please give generously to continue to make this one of the best places on the planet to live. Ladies and gentlemen, Donnell Fincher and Encore.
It takes a whole village to raise our children. It takes a whole village to raise one child. We all, everyone, will share the burden. We all, everyone, will share the joy. Takes a whole village to raise one child. We all, everyone, will share the burden. We all, everyone, will share the
And now, please stand as you are able for the Fayetteville High School alma mater.
Colors wave the purple line.
Thank you very much. Teachers, alums, students, volunteers, musicians, singers, thank you so much. A reminder that you can take the flowers on your table home with you. All we ask is that you remove the table number and the sponsor recognition card that are in those wires and leave them on the table. Otherwise, the flowers are yours. Thank you so much. See you next year.